It was the kind of night that makes you question every choice you've ever made. Rain pelted the city streets, turning them into glistening reflective ribbons under the dim streetlights. I was sitting in my cramped apartment, scrolling through social media when the notification popped up. Exploring tonight. Derelict Mansion. You in? It was from Jake, the unofficial leader of our little band of urban explorers. I hesitated, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. The mansion he was talking about had a reputation. It sat abandoned at the end of Oakwood Avenue, its towering silhouette a constant eerie presence. Locals whispered about the place, saying it was cursed. I shrugged off the feeling and typed back a quick, "I'm in." We met up at the old diner on 5th Street, the usual spot. Jake was already there, grinning like a kid on Christmas. Sarah and Matt showed up a few minutes later, bundled up against the cold. "You guys ready for this?" Jake asked, his eyes shining with excitement. "As ready as we'll ever be," Sarah replied, her voice steady but her eyes betraying a flicker of doubt. The walk to the mansion was uneventful, but the sense of foreboding grew with each step. The closer we got, the quieter the city seemed to become, as if the mansion was absorbing all sound and life around it. When we finally stood before it, I couldn't help but feel a shiver run down my spine. The mansion was enormous, its once grand facade now crumbling and covered in ivy. The windows were dark, empty voids staring back at us. "Let's do this," Jake said, pushing open the rusted gate with a creak that echoed in the silence. The front door was unlocked, hanging loosely on its hinges. We stepped inside, our flashlights cutting through the thick darkness. The air was cold and musty, filled with the scent of decay and something else I couldn't quite place. "Smells like something died in here," Matt muttered, wrinkling his nose. "Maybe it did," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. We moved through the main hall, our footsteps echoing off the marble floors. The mansion was a labyrinth of decaying rooms and long dark corridors. Every now and then, we'd hear a distant creak or a whisper of wind, making us jump. We came across a grand staircase, its steps covered in a thick layer of dust. Jake motioned for us to follow him upstairs. The second floor was in even worse shape than the first. The wallpaper was peeling away, revealing moldy walls beneath. As we explored, we stumbled upon a locked door at the end of the hall. "Think you can pick it?" Jake asked, handing Matt a set of lockpicks. Matt nodded and got to work. After a few tense minutes, we heard a click, and the door swung open. The room beyond was different from the rest of the mansion. It was almost pristine, as if time had forgotten it. In the center stood a large, ornate mirror. As we approached, I felt a chill run down my spine. The mirror seemed to pulse with a dark energy, drawing us in. "What's up with this thing?" Sarah asked, reaching out to touch it. "Don't," I said, grabbing her hand. "I have a bad feeling about this." Ignoring my warning, Jake stepped forward and touched the mirror. The room grew colder, and the air seemed to thicken. Suddenly, the mirror's surface rippled like water, and we were no longer alone. A family of ghostly figures appeared, their faces twisted in sorrow and pain. The father, mother, and 2 children stared at us with hollow eyes. "Who are you?" Jake demanded, but the figures didn't respond. Instead, they began to move, their movements jerky and unnatural. They reached out to us, their hands passing through our bodies, sending chills down our spines. We backed away, but the ghosts followed, their expressions growing more desperate. "We need to get out of here," I said, panic rising in my chest. As we fled the room, the mansion seemed to come alive around us. Doors slammed shut, and the walls groaned. We stumbled upon a dusty old diary in the library, its pages filled with the tragic story of the family that once lived here. They had been trapped in the mansion for years, their souls unable to move on due to a curse placed on them by a vengeful relative. The mirror was the key, a portal that kept them bound to this world. "We have to break the curse," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "But how?" Jake asked, flipping through the diary. "There must be something in here," I said, grabbing the book. We found the instructions for a ritual that could supposedly break the curse. It required a piece of each family member's personal belongings, which we had to find scattered throughout the mansion. We split up, each of us taking a different part of the mansion. The air grew heavier, and the sense of dread deepened with every step. I found a locket in the children's bedroom. Sarah discovered a handkerchief in the mother's sewing room, Matt located a pocket watch in the father's study, and Jake found a ring in the master bedroom. We gathered in the grand hall, the ghosts watching us silently as we performed the ritual. The air crackled with energy, and the mansion seemed to groan in protest. As we completed the ritual, the ghosts began to change. Their twisted expressions softened, and they looked at us with gratitude. The mansion shuddered one last time before falling silent. "We did it," Sarah said, her voice barely audible. The ghosts slowly faded away, their forms dissolving into the air. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, replaced by a sense of peace. But as we turned to leave, I noticed something in the mirror. My reflection was distorted, twisted into a grotesque version of myself. I blinked, and it was gone. We left the mansion in silence, the weight of what we had experienced settling over us. As we stepped outside, the first rays of dawn broke through the clouds, casting a soft light over the mansion. "We should tell someone about this place," Matt said, breaking the silence. "No one would believe us," Jake replied, shaking his head. As we walked away, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. The mirror's image haunted me, a constant reminder of the darkness we had faced. Weeks later, I found myself drawn back to the mansion. Nature had already begun to reclaim it, vines and ivy covering its facade. I stood before the mirror once more, my reflection staring back at me. And then, just for a moment, I saw them. The family, watching me with those hollow eyes. They were free, but the mansion was still haunted. Maybe it always would be.